Hello and welcome to Be Unmessable with the podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is Aleta St James. She is an internationally renowned master energy healer. She's a gifted intuitive and she's a life coach. She's also known as Indiana Jones of the soul. She's always been a dynamo, a groundbreaker, and a transformational force ahead of her time. She made international news when she gave birth to twins at 57, and she is still going strong at 76. She's a successful author of Life Shift, Let Go and Live Your Dreams. And she has been featured on every major media you can imagine, including the cover of New York Magazine. She's amazing, as you will soon find out. Please welcome my guest, Aleta St James.
Oh, goodness, Josselyne, you always make me smile like the world is your pineapple. I love it.
I love it. As long as it's not a mango, because I'm allergic to mangoes.
No,
So we don't want that. Okay, good. I'll take it. I will take it.
Really, I feel very blessed and empowered that you asked me to be on the podcast with you so we could have a conversation about transformation and about unmessability or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Right? Unmesswithableness. Yes, we're making up words for sure on this show. So, that was such a short introduction and it was like a couple of highlights. I do want to talk about you giving birth to twins at 57, but tell us how you became a master energy healer and intuitive. Like, how does one go about that career?
Well, usually, Josselyne, it runs in the family. So my father was very intuitive and psychic. They used him in World War II to go behind the lines. To find any, soldiers that were imprisoned, hidden.
Wow.
And he could track them down. So he was in a special battalion there. He's the only one that survived. So he was quite a remarkable man. And so I got that from my dad. And so when I was little, I always knew what people were thinking. And I was always healing the little birds or the cats or anybody that was I was brought up in Chicago because we're half Polish, half Italian. So the Polish people, my people there were all, in Chicago, and my Italians were all in, Brooklyn. Yes. So I was born in Chicago, and that's where I used to go down the alleyways and I would find all these animals. I'd take them home and heal them. But what happened that really accelerated everything for me is I started out in a show business career, like about 6 years old. I was on stage with my cousin Jimmy. He was a child star in Chicago, and he had his own theater at 16.
Oh my gosh.
And I had that thing that I just wanted to do the theater. And I was in Queens College studying theater, and a director came with my mom, Frances, and said, she has to go to England. She got to study in England. So I did. I just picked up, worked for a year in Foot-Kona Building and went to England to English Drama School. And then the whole thing, I got the lead in the Amsterdam production of Hair. I lived in Europe for 5 years. I toured all over the place. But there's this thing in show business. You could be the most amazing person, but getting out there in front of people and showing your heart and your soul, and then all of a sudden you hear next, or we really hired, a superstar to do your role, or you're not really quite right, you're a blonde, we were looking for brunettes. It could be anything.
Yep. So it is random many times.
Oh my God. Oh, that's right. Of
yes, I have I've been managing actors for 30 years. So believe me, you're speaking my language,
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's no rhyme or reason. And even when I was directing in my early 20s and late 20s, and I was able to do star packages and stuff like that, that was amazing. That was the opportunity. I had 500 resumes in front of me. 500.
Well, it's very interesting because you've done both sides of the table, so to speak. So it's random. It's not personal. I wish every actor had the opportunity to do that, because when you have 500 resumes in front of you, you realize there's a lot of talented people. It doesn't take away from somebody that they don't get the role, that they're not talented. It doesn't mean that.
Right, but you're feeling it in your heart, and you have to pay the rent, and you
Yes.
have to eat, and you're tired of waitressing, period, or whatever other job you have. So the thing is that I started studying bioenergetics and primal therapy and healing with light, just so that I could transcend that. And I was able to really pick it up and level up so that my friends were going, "What are you doing? Things don't seem to bother you anymore." I had an eating disorder at the time because that was a time of twiggy. You had to be a twig. If you weren't a twig, forget about it. So, and I'm, Italian and Polish. I'm not really a
No,
twig.
that's not
I
twig.
have the curves, right?
That's a different region. The twig
Well,
region is not in Italy and Poland.
boobs and curves were not in,
Yes.
especially in England. Everything was, like straight, skinny, stick. So I wouldn't eat for 3 days and then I'd start to eat. So when I got into the primal therapy and the bioenergetics, I realized it was all emotional. I started working with my friends in the theater. They started changing very rapidly. And then some psychics saw me work and they said, "She's psychic. She knows exactly what's going on with people. I can read their energy." And then I started to develop it from there. And by the time I was in my early 30s, it's like show business was kind of going to the background more. And people were asking me to go to, Nuremberg, to the opera house there, work with the opera people, go back to England, go all over the world, and Paris and San Francisco and LA. And so that kind of took over. And I thought, wow, I have more control here than I do in the theater. I can make a big difference in people's
Yes.
lives right away. And so I wound up working with celebrities and building their careers and, people that are artistic that really need that support, that person that can see what's the block and then help them clear it and then put in a higher frequency there. And so I was thrilled that took over in my life. And then I was able to incorporate by doing my, spiritual journeys throughout the years, more of the theater, more of the performing, when I'm doing my seminars. And so big groups of people like in Vegas,
Yeah.
that was a gas for me to get on that stage and to, do my rock and roll number kind of like, and having people get up
It was
and dance.
country. It was
It
country.
was country, right? At 76, I thought, why not?
I know, but you say 76, and every time you say it, I mean, when we were sitting across from each other at dinner, I was like, there's no way this woman, I think she's lying. I think she's full of it. I think you're lying, but you're
Just
not.
no. You see, the thing is, for some reason, I don't know if you believe in astrology or not, but I have a
Enough.
lot of planets in the 12th house. That's behind the scenes and whatever. It also means that you're going to feel that you're ageless. I always did.
Mm.
And then when I was like 22 and 23, and I was in LA, I went to an ashram there and I saw a picture of a guru, and the guru looked like kind of like asexual, male, female, And I said, "How old is that guru?" And they said 800 years old. And I went, 800? I mean, in autobiography of a yogi, you read about stories like that. I said, yeah, he just doesn't want to reincarnate a lot. He wants to stay, the way he is. And I thought, I have to learn how to do that. But anyway, I imprinted agelessness in my brain. And in my life, I have a very difficult astrology chart. I have a lot of Saturn and Pluto and blah, blah, blah. And so you either kill yourself or you transform. I
Well, hopefully
decided
that
to
first option is
transform.
off the table, you know?
Right. So I was going to learn how to transform. And then I kept it in my head. It's like people said to me, "You can't have kids at 57. What are you, out of your mind?"
Okay, here comes the story. This we
This
need
is
to
the
hear.
story.
I mean, literally, I am 57, and the thought of even having a period is freaking me out. Like, I'm like, no, 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 tell us how that all happened.
Well, you see, I was like the Indiana Jones of the soul. So I had to travel to India and Peru and Santa Fe and you name it to really get into the indigenous situation and learn it and transform myself. And that took a lot of time. It also would have been really hard had I been married. I had a lot of relationships. I lived with 5 different men, but I never committed to marriage because when it was time for me to go, like into a hermitage and do 7 weeks of mindfulness. I was gone. I'll never forget, I was living with a movie star who was so handsome. It killed me to do this, but I said, I have to go and meditate for 7 weeks. And of course, he didn't believe it, right? And he's like, yeah, I'll later show you to
Meditate with
no,
who?
I'm telling you. Anyway, he said, I don't believe it. You know, this was like too much for him. So I gave him the keys and I said, I have to go. But that's how I was. I was unstoppable at that time. I was going to learn, I was going to learn, I was going to learn. So my grandmother gave birth to my mother at 53. And I heard this in my Italian, relatives. Grandma gave birth to your mother at 53. And I figured, I've got so many years left. And my friends kept on saying to me, when are you going to start this baby thing? Because I was always, healing and detoxing, getting ready for the baby or baby.
And your friends are like, tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah, what's going on? So I met somebody. I thought, I'm 49 now, let me start. But I wound up with three miscarriages. And I thought, wow, I guess I'm not like my grandmother. Then I had to think, let me move on a little bit more. And I had to look into in vitro. And then I had to wind up with a donor egg because my eggs, there's some good eggs up there, but I would be 100 by the time I was waiting for them to come down.
Yeah.
So I had to get over the idea that it was my genetics. And so I went with the donor. And by the time you go through all that, then I was like 56. I mean, it took me 7 years.
Wow.
7 years of, I wasn't going to give up. And for anybody who's had a miscarriage, you know that it's devastating.
It's horrible.
Okay? It's horrible because you have no control over it, none. And it just comes from left field sometimes.
And it's shocking, it's like, even though statistically 1 out of every 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage, when you have your first miscarriage, it's like nobody told you that or something, or you don't find that out until you have a miscarriage. And it's bizarre, because you're like pregnant 1 minute and then the next minute you're not pregnant. So in 1 minute you have this future of the rest of that baby's life, forever. And then in the next moment you don't. It's shocking.
Yeah, and I can work, I work with a lot of women in terms of getting them pregnant in mid-30s into like late 40s. But the thing is this, that I have gone through it. So when they're devastated and crushed, I say, look, I've been there, 3 of them. I understand. Now you got to go through it and then let's find out what else is next. And let's get back in the game. Because I always got back in the game. I had a very dear friend of mine, a doctor, who she took my blood work and had very high levels of mercury, because at the time I was eating sushi. And mercury can also create miscarriages. So I did like chelation, DMSO, all that kind of stuff. And I lost my period. And she said, why are you doing this, Aleta? You know you're never going to get pregnant. I said, didn't you kind of figure out that this only happens? Because I decided I wasn't going to go into menopause. I wasn't. No way. I was having my period and I was 54 or 55, actually. She said, why don't you just give up? And I went, no, I'm not giving up. I'm having a baby. No matter 57, 58, I'm going to have a baby. Because I locked in to just watch me. And sure enough, I called up my fertility doctor, Dr. Jane Miller, and I said, Jane, what do you think? And she said, Aleta, if you have a uterus, I'll get you pregnant. End of story. I finished the DMSO, the chelation. I got my period back. I called a naturopath. Boom. In a month, I got my period back and we were back on track. So my point is, there are people, if you're going through this whole fertility journey, it's not for babies. I don't think men would ever go through it, ever. When my women come in, I say, it's a good thing it's you, because our planet would have very sparse population if it was men. Because the first time pain or
Oh,
miscarriage or
please.
whatever happened, forget it, out of here. No, let's figure out something else,
Yeah, exactly. I had an
It was-
ectopic pregnancy. I had a
oh,
miscarriage. I mean, I've been pregnant like 6 times.
oh
It's,
God,
yeah, well, I
Josselyne.
have three actual
Yeah,
children. So,
yeah,
but I was adopted. So when you said I had to give up that it was going to be my genetics,
yeah,
for me, that's so, I have the best parents in the whole world, and I'm so
yeah,
blessed that I was adopted. Doesn't, family is an invented thing. It's
yeah,
not genetics. It's like, I have a birth father, a birth mother. They both passed. I found, family eventually through DNA and everything. And I'm
right.
happy that I found them, but it doesn't detract from, you know, your love for those children for sure. And
Oh,
how old are your
absolutely.
twins now?
Now they're 19 and they're just like really sweet. They're very, very conservative children. I'm the wild woman, right? In the they do in my country and western, Luke, Brian, move in the kitchen. My son goes to me, Mom, should we be concerned about you?
Sounds like my children too, like,
Going
please
on
don't
the
do that.
princess. Aren't
I'll
you
go,
closing
come on, my
your
players. They're like, please stop, please stop.
What are you doing? Can you be quiet? I'm trying to get some sleep.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
rather than was that, Josselyne, then, I left home at 19, no, 17 and a half, excuse me, because I just wanted my freedom. I think that was a generation that I really
Mm.
was. I went to work, I got to England, I did whatever I had to do. But the kids now, they just stay in the home, I think.
I know. A couple
My
of them live
kids
with us, two of
are
my
not paying
three.
kids.
If I had a bigger house, all of them would. My daughter and her husband would probably move in too, and it would be okay with me.
Yeah, I mean, I have my son and his girlfriend. My daughter today, she's home from college. She said, "Do you mind if my friend from North Carolina comes to live with us?" I said, "I don't. I mean, where am I going to move out to?"
I know, really. It's like that's the thing. They start expanding and taking over, you know.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
but given the show's called Be Unmessable With, I like to ask every guest about a time in your life, Aleta. And when people have lived enough time, like you and I have,
Right.
we've seen more than one time that was difficult. Difficult circumstances, things that looked like unsurmountable, transcendable, and
Hmm.
could have taken you out of the game,
Well, I
but
think,
didn't.
but Jocelyn, I think it's the fertility thing. I
Yeah.
think that I wanted it so badly, and you know what it's like when you want a child. It's like you're in your DNA, you'll do anything. And every single time there was a disappointment, and then I rose above it and I figured out something else. And I, went to India to the fertility temples and I did meditations there and Peru. I mean, I really did the search and I was bringing in the children from very high levels, spiritual resonance. But when it didn't happen, that was like devastating to me. But I got back in there. But the biggest thing towards the end of it was a partner that I was with at the time couldn't go forward with it. And
Mm.
so I had to make a decision to do it on my own. And I did, so after all that time, and then I wasn't thinking I was going to be a single parent, but that was my choice. And I chose to do that. And so I rose above it and now I have two beautiful children and I'm very happy I did that. But I think that everything in my life, because as you suggested to me, you should write your memoirs. And I sat down yesterday to kind of think about how I would do the chapters in that.
Oh, good.
And it's like my message is like, don't ever give up because every time I got the lead in the Amsterdam production of Hair, and then all of a sudden I came back to America. I went from the star that everybody knew in Holland to who are you? And then I had to recreate myself and start again. But every single time that things didn't work out for me, I try to find another way. Like I tried Jesus Christ Superstars, tried out for that. And they said next. And I said, well, didn't you see that I had a lead in Hair? And they said, yeah, but you're in America now. And then all of a sudden I figured, well, I guess I'll start my own rock band. So I started my own rock band. And then all of a sudden that led me to go and do hair and direct hair, because I knew Jerry and Jim in Norfolk, Virginia. And then that got me into directing all these star packages when I was in my mid-20s. And then every single time something didn't work out for me, it just leveled up to something even greater, because I never gave up. I always said, okay, what else is next? What else can I do? And there are times like right before hair. All right, this is a story. You have to listen to this. Right before hair, I was supposed to have a scholarship for my third year in drama school at East 15. And then they decided not to give it to me. I was going to teach dance because I was a dancer as well. And I had no money. I was in England. I had no money. I knew I wasn't supposed to go back to America. And then my ballet teacher, his name was John from Covent Garden, said, keep going to ballet class, and why don't you audition for this production of Hair? It says Commonwealth countries only. And they used to kid around with me. Oh, blah, blah, blah. You're a Commonwealth country. I said, all right. So then I thought, what am I going to sing? So I go to, before I leave for the audition, there's this dark Max Factor makeup, because I was doing a Latina girl in the Roundhouse as a show. I took it. When I got to the audition, they said, sorry, love. She said, we're looking for, dark-skinned women, because, they had the Supremes. And I went, oh my God, I need this job to myself. I can't. So I said, okay, I'm going to come back. So I went into the bathroom. I made my skin a little darker. I came out and she said, oh, really, love, are you, I said, listen, let them hear me sing.
Yeah.
And if they don't like the way I sing, I will leave. She said, oh, suit yourself. That's the special English thing. Suit yourself, love. I said, okay. So I got on the line. I got there. Now, I hadn't been really singing that much except in school. So my Aunt Angie used to sing Bill Bailey on bar, stools and things like that. And she was the rip of the party always. So, and then People from Barbra Streisand, which is not an easy song, but it was easy for me. So I sang Bill Bailey and People, and I got the lead just because of my voice and how I was. But if I didn't do that crazy thing, and I didn't have that intuition to take that max, it was either 6 or 12, I can't remember. That would have been it. I don't know what would have happened to me, because you can't really work in England.
Yeah.
You really can't. And so, it was like things like that all along where I took leaps of faith.
Yes.
And things just fell into place. And the same thing in relationships. It's like every single relationship that I couldn't stay in because I felt it was going to constrict me, or it didn't work out, or somebody married somebody else,
Right.
I found that, oh, that was a killer. The love of my life wound up marrying someone else at right 2 months, no, a month, no, 3 weeks after my brother got shot by the mafia, because my brother started the Guardian Angels in New York City.
Curtis Lewa. Yep. I grew up with the Guardian Angels. This is why I'm telling you, you have to write your memoir. This is ridiculous. You have so many stories. It's like.
But right then, I had warned him, because my astrologer said, a sibling in your chart is going to get assassinated, or they're going to try to assassinate your sibling. And I went, that's got to be Curtis. So I called him up. Don't worry, I'm okay. Well, of course, they shot him in the back of the cab, the mafia. In fact, one of the guys, the guy that shot him, Nicky something, we grew up with in Brooklyn. Thank God he got indicted and he went to jail eventually. My brother, he lived off of that, but he lived from that. But 3 weeks after that, I get the call from a friend of mine that says, blah, 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 just got married yesterday on page 6. That was a man I was supposed to go away with that weekend. So it's like crush, kill, whatever. I rose again and said, okay, you go through that. It feels horrible. Past life, soulmate, whatever. Of course, a month later, biggest mistake of my life. I said, well, sorry.
Too late.
Can't do it. And then, Josselyne, listen to this. I got pulled into a restaurant and they said to me, and he was sitting right there, and I was with my dog. I went into this restaurant, I saw him, and he saw me, and I sat right next to him. I was like in shock. And he went to the back of the restaurant with whoever he was with, another guy. And then I wrote him a note and I said, la, 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 are you afraid to look at me? So he comes coming up. I'm sorry, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I said, it's okay. I said, but we should see each other. And I said, before you die. It just came out of my mouth. And he said, I am not gonna die. He used to call me Sliwa. I'm not gonna die right now, Sliwa. And I'd say, I don't know, I'm just feeling we should go to dinner or something. It'll be okay. I'm okay. Do you know, 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a restaurant, I look up and it's on the news that he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like, I had the feeling, because you can have such close connections with somebody
Yeah.
and you don't, it's from a past life. It's so deep. It's different than, women, what's that book, Women Who Are Stupid or something? But anyway, it's not like a regular relationship. It's like pulling. And I just knew he was going to die.
Mm.
And he did.
I'm afraid to hang around you. I don't want to get a call from you that we should have dinner before I die. I think
I'm going to live to 120 and you can live to 122 if you want.
Okay, well, the way I feel today, I don't know, 120 might be a little long, but I'll take 90 would be nice. Although my mother's 93, my father's 91, my uncle's 96, my grandfather lived till 105. None of the DNA do I have, but
No, but listen, Josselyne, I have the secret sauce. I do ageless retreats in Cabo. So we release all the emotional stuff, which you've done a lot of work with yourself when you were the head of Landmark. I mean, for God's sakes, okay? So you're at a certain level, right? Then we can get you to another level and you don't have to get decrepit.
I
You
love
don't
it.
have to get like old.
It's
You can
one of
just
the
rock
biggest
it out.
things, right? I mean, most of my friends are over 75, I would say, almost all my best friends are over 75. And they all say the same thing. It's like, just keep your body moving, keep it moving,
Yeah.
keep it going, because it's the only one you got.
And you have to detox, you have to find out from your blood work and from, your gut work, because the gut and that brain are connected, right? And the microbiomes in your system, like what's not there, and then detox, get out all the old, dense whatever, and then put the really good stuff in, and then you'll start to rise and thrive. That's why I look the way I look, but it's not because of stem cells or this or that or detoxes. It's because of spiritual energy. If you can channel spiritual energy into the cells of your body, you integrate the physical, emotional, mental bodies, and that's in my book, Life Shift. I talk about that. You release all that stuff, and then you level up to a higher frequency. That frequency can actually integrate into the physical, emotional, and mental bodies.
Mm.
And then you level up and you become that next idea about yourself. So when they say you create your own realities, I don't know if you ever read any of the Seth materials, Josselyne, but Seth was, came through a channel. And I remember reading all that. And it was really, we create our own reality, but I'm really seeing it right now. And so a lot of our progressions of what our limitations are and who we are come from our DNA, our people around us, what we pick up. And then when we start to say, okay, I want to level up to a new reality of what I can create and who I can be, then you have to change all those belief systems, but you have to change them on a cellular vibrational rate level so that you're actually almost like when they talk about multiple personalities, like Mary could have diabetes, right? And you switch to Jane, and then Jane has arthritis. And then you switch to Isabel, and Isabel has bone cancer. Each one that you change to, you immediately take on their physiological problems. So the same thing is what we create in our own reality. Once you get into a certain level of consciousness and you create that reality, that's what you start to manifest. And if it's all healthy and if it's vibrant and if it's coming from that vibrational love energy for yourself, for others, in your body itself, then you're having a different reality and living out of a different reality than ever before. And that's what I work with a lot with on my individual, people.
Coaching, yeah.
Yeah, in the, the retreats that I do, in the webinars that I give, because I'm able to transfer energy through my body in terms of everything that I've leveled up to out to people so that they can get massive healings from a download that I'm able to channel to them. So I do that, like that's what I was doing in Las Vegas. And a lot of people actually felt the heat, they felt the energy that I was transmitting to them.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I was there and it was a group of 200 or 300 people all at the same time. So for those of you watching or listening to this podcast, working with Aleta is definitely a very unique and special experience. And if you can do it, you should do it. And we definitely will have all the links to where you can find Aleta in the show notes. But it's not like only if you're sick or something. It's really about raising the leveling up. I love that term that you're using. And the other thing I'm left with out of our conversation, like it stuck with me, is find another way. Find another way. Like that is so what I work with people on too. It's like, keep your eye on the vision. Don't worry about the vehicle. Find another way. You can't take a boat to Rome? Good. Take a train. Like what? It doesn't matter how you get there. What's the next step and the next action and the next action? So I can hear a real harmonic with the work that you do and how you've lived your life completely.
Yeah, and it keeps going, it really keeps. That's it. There was a woman that was doing a podcast from England, and she's 102. And she was really saying that that's what keeps her going. She started writing books at 90, so she gets excited about writing her books and she gets excited about talking about her mission, and that's what keeps her going. But if you don't do the physical stuff and the spiritual stuff, you start to age, you start to get decrepit.
Yeah.
And really that's not in my resonance. Decrepitude is not in my resonance.
No, that's not in your future. I do not see that.
No.
Definitely not.
What they do, the Tibetans, they decide when they're going to leave, they sit on a slab, they meditate, and they go up. The same thing with the Indians, Indian gurus. I was in one of the temples in southern India, it's called the Light Temple. And there they have, people that have gone into the light, gurus that have gone into the light. And this is a story they talk about Jesus, right? He transcended into the light. And I know when I was in Varanasi and I was meditating, there was like 3,000 Hindus there, and I was with priests and things of that nature on my fertility path. I got the impression of Jesus there, and I went, wow, that's the holiest city in the world. I'm sure he studied here, And so sure enough, there's this slab in the middle of the point of India, right? The light temple. And that's where gurus go up and they transcend into the light. So it's all that I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. That might take them lifetimes, but I want to kind of figure out, okay, I've had it, time to go.
Yeah.
Rather than, my soul take me out and go, you're finished. You've done what you want to do.
Listen, I think that's a very powerful place to come from, because if you look at it, it's like you're the author of your life. Yeah. Why not be the author of your passing?
Exactly. Right.
I get it completely. I think that's amazing. But let me ask you a question for people listening. What's something like an action, one thing they could start doing today that would, yeah, go ahead.
You can start, I like to use the light. So let's just say you got hurt. You're tremendously rejected, all right? Right in the heart. So you can do a big story around that, or you can say, okay, I'm feeling rejected, all right? The only one that can really reject me is me. So I'm not going to reject me and feel like I'm not enough and everything else and start comparing myself. I'm going to feel that rejection in my heart. I'm going to breathe into it and breathe into that heart. This is your spiritual heart center. Breathe into it. Hold it for the count of 5 and then think of gold light, because gold transforms energy. And count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and release it into a silver sun. That's cosmic mother. Gold is cosmic father. And then do that until it really, keep feeling it, hold it for the count of 5, surround it with the gold light, release it into the silver. And then say, when it feels like it's leveled out, what else is possible? So for instance, if somebody's rejected you, they've gone out with somebody else, you were married, they had an affair, blah, 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 blah. What else is possible? Well, maybe find somebody else. This person he's not the only, or she's not the only helicopter out of Saigon, or work it out, find out what wasn't happening in the relationship. Yeah. Why did that happen? Because a lot of times, it takes 2. But there's always other possibilities other than feeling rejected or feeling like I'll never pay my bills, I'm never going to get out of this financial horror, and breathe it, release it, and then say, what else is possible? And then all of a sudden your brain will start moving into, oh, try this, rather than it's hopeless, you can't get out of it, and then you're in bed for 2 days.
I love it. So I love it.
And I do that a lot.
That's a very actionable step that somebody could do in any situation, whether it had to do with money or relationships or family or anything. So I think that's really super useful. And, what else is possible? What else is possible? I think we should name the episode, What Else is Possible?
Right. I love that.
I love it too. So what do you want to leave people with?
Best. You want the best.
I'm the best. Are you kidding me? This episode's about you. You're the best. You're good.
Josselyne, you just light up my life. Can I tell a little story?
Of course.
This is how I met Josselyne, all right? My son is a very high level functioning Asperger's, okay? He is like wonderful. I bring him to Las Vegas and I didn't realize there were all these lights between the casino and the stage we were on. Well, he can't. He got overloaded. He was a mess. He was up all night. Now, because I come from a show business career and I'm a singer, you always get sleep before you go up and sing and do anything, right? I got Zippo on the sleep. And I said to myself, you know what? That was you before. This is you now. You're going to get up and do it.
New game. No sleep, perform. The show must go on.
Dance, whatever, no sleep. So, and then I didn't have him come, thank God. All right. Because I wanted to show at the end of the show my 2 miracles, which was my daughter and my son. So my daughter was there. My son, I left him in the casino. So anyway, if it wasn't for
you make it sound like you're like in the casino. You left him in the room, in the hotel room, not the casino,
So we're rushing and I'm late. And so Lauren, who gave the whole thing, Own Your Worth, and Josselyne went on instead of me. Poor Josselyne. What was going on with you? I'm sure
like an hour early. I was like, okay,
And as I'm running and I'm watching her, perform, I said, God, that woman's got her, shit together. Because she was like rocking it and doing her thing. She's really great. As I'm going over there, she really saved my butt, I hadn't met her at all, right? Yeah. And so then she finished and she was fabulous. Every grand applause, amazing. And then I went on. So you really saved my, what? And we both
we bonded and that was that. But it was my pleasure to save your butt. But it was so funny because as I was doing the keynote, I was so out of breath because I had to run backstage to take your place. So like the whole time when I'm listening to the recording now, I sound like I'm about to have a heart attack. I can't even breathe. I'm like, it's like, next time take a breath.
Me too, in some of the places because I was rushing, right? Oh my God.
Too funny. I know. And then people are like, oh no, you were great. I'm like, okay, yeah, I was great.
As I'm really like great. I mean, I saw you, you were really great. And I wouldn't say it unless I meant it.
Well, I appreciate it.
Under all circumstances, Josselyne will do it.
Unmessable with prevails.
Unmessable for sure.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for saying yes. And
Oh,
for
my pleasure.
And for those of you listening, if you learned something, if you got value, if something touched you, moved you, inspired you, please share this episode with people in your life and rate and review it, subscribe, do all those things, but share it most importantly, because both of us for sure want to make the biggest impact possible with as many people possible. So the more people that have the tools to live the life of their dreams and be unmessable with, the better. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again for joining us, Aleta. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. And I am so happy that you spent some time with us. And I want to make sure that every time you spend time with us, you get value. So I want to offer you a free workshop on resilience and unmessable withness. So if you click below, Dr. Kathy Connor and I put together this workshop, and it's free, and it'll give you a world around the difference between resilience and being unmessable with, not only from my perspective, but from a neuroscientist's perspective. So those of you that love that world of neuroscience, click below and get the workshop for free. See you on the next episode.